Hello everybody, welcome to On the Road in Recovery with myself, Adrian Cox. So we just finished a festival, played at a festival last night in Upton-on-Severn, had a great show, really good. It was really strange because the last time I was there, everyone was like, all right, Hayes, how you doing, you know, and then suddenly realised that I hadn't been there for 8 years, but people still said, oh yeah, I remember you last time when you were here, and it's like, yeah, you make an impression. People remember you when you're staggering around a bit pissed. And it was weird. I went to get paid from the promoter, who I deal with a lot because even though I haven't been here, the band have been here, been to the festival lots of times. And it was strange because I didn't recognise him at all, his face or anything. So it's very strange, and I'm always someone who knows I'm very good with faces. It's always like, oh, Adrian remembers faces, names, and I even did that when I was pissed. But I tell you what, I didn't recognise his face. I knew his name, but yeah, it was strange. It was 8 years ago, but I remember being there last time and it being having a crazy time. But thanks for all your comments and messages on the other videos. Lots of people have been messaging me, asking various questions, which I'm going to touch on, and one of them was like, how do you know if you're an addict, or are you an addict, or someone said, are you an alcoholic if you're drinking and it's just for fun? Like, I drink for fun, does that mean I am an alcoholic potentially, or an addicted? It's a really hard one. I mean, someone said to me once, it doesn't matter whether you have one half of lager a day or one line of Coke a day or something. It's just how that affects you, how it affects you, you know. So you can't measure it on like, I remember, so for example, I don't know how much you know about my background, but I left home when I was 15 years old, thanks to my parents who let me go away to pursue my career as a musician. So I moved away. I moved 300 miles from where I lived. I was 15 years old. I moved in with guys who were in their late 20s. And it wasn't really spoken about, gone like, oh, you're only 15, so maybe we can get you a drink. Or I just went into life as if I was late 20s, early 30s. Which meant, and the guy who I lived with was a very, very big drinker. So we'd go down the pub. I was 15 years old, and I suppose being 15 and being on the road on tour with a band, anywhere you went, and you went into a bar, people, because I was just walking up to the bar asking for a drink, that it wasn't questioned, because normally you'd be amongst, you know, it was weird that it was 2 p.m. and a 15-year-old lad walks in and says, oh, what ales have you got? You know, so it wasn't really spoken about. But the thing was, I didn't start drinking because I felt I needed to drink. It's because it was in the world of the music industry, of the band playing jazz in a jazz band that was touring around, and that's what everyone was doing. Everyone in the audience was having a pint. Everyone in the band was having a pint. A couple in the band particularly were having a lot of pints, and so that was it. And so I wasn't drinking because, I was drinking and having a really good time. And then my tolerance of drinking from that age just went up and up and up. And I remember putting drinking before everything, and drinking and smoking before everything, and smoking cannabis as well. I'd put it before everything. So I remember there were times where we had, it was when tobacco was £1.30 for half an ounce. And so, God, I sound old. But we, it's like, oh, what do we do? We've got £1.50 to our name. Do we go and buy a loaf of bread and some cheese? Or do, I know it sounds really, really old, but it was like that. Do we go to Safeways and buy that? Or do we get some tobacco? And so it would always be tobacco, and we were always going around getting a tab in the pub, making up stories, going, well, what we'll do is we've got some gigs coming up. Can we have a tab and then we'll pay you? We used to go busking in the town every day that we were home when we weren't on the road. We'd go busking, spent every single penny. If I had 50 quid in my pocket, I had 50 quid to spend until the next thing. but I was always having what I think was a good time. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I'm having a good time, getting pissed. It was only I think as life goes on and real stresses in life become a thing, you know, whether you have to deal with things like, you know, I remember very early on I got into debt of you know, I hadn't paid the rent. I hadn't done, you know, this was within a year and a half of having left home. The person I was living with hadn't paid rent, hadn't done this, you know, and it was like, and it was funny because he was a role model to me. Not like, it wasn't like, I'm going to teach you the ways. It was like, I lived with him and we were best mates and we had the best time ever. Unfortunately, the story isn't that great because when I was told I had to stop drinking, and bearing in mind he was 26, I was 15, so he was 11 years older than me. Unfortunately, so when I stopped drinking, he said to me, that's terrible news. He said, I'm gonna carry on drinking and drink more. I have one for you every time. And he said to me one day, he said, I'll drop down dead of something horrific. He said, I just know it. But he carried on drinking and whatever else he was doing. And unfortunately, in 2015, he did drop down dead of something horrific. You know, he had a brain hemorrhage. And, you know, I remember the first thing when I heard that news of that, I remember phoning my dad and I just said to my dad, I said, I am so pleased that I don't drink anymore. That was the first thing I said. But yeah, so it's when people say, right, so yeah, but I don't drink that much, or I never drunk as much as you, Adrian, so I'm not an alcoholic. And it's like, it's not about how much you drink, it's how that drink affects you. And yeah, so I think the point what I was going to say is, yeah, when I started to notice it was when real stresses of life, which probably shouldn't be stresses. If you're earning enough money to pay your rent, then you make sure you pay your rent. You don't earn enough money to then spend that all on drink and drugs or whatever it is you want to do. So it's when, this is the thing that I always say, it's when it becomes you know, maybe nip it in the bud before it becomes a problem. That's the ideal thing. But my thing that I say to people is that I won't tell anybody what to do, or I won't tell it. People say to me, oh, you should tell them to watch their drinking, you should tell them to do that. It's the worst thing to do. Anybody who ever told me in time to watch my drinking, all I ever did was drink more or did more. And there's a lot of stuff I notice on the sobriety channels and things on Instagram and on YouTube, is that people often say people have to hit rock bottom to know how bad it is, to then be able to, you know, that thing of everybody's got two lives in this, you know, I can't remember who said it, one of the philosophers, but everybody has two lives, and everyone realises that everyone has two lives, and they realise that once they realise they've only got one, then the second life begins, you know. So yeah, it's a strange one. I just noticed that, like, the stresses of normal life, paying rent, bills, any kind of bit of stress, or not even stress, but anything that's important to deal with, suddenly becomes a million times harder. And it's very, very, you know, it's hard to deal with. Because now, having been sober for 7.5 years off booze and, you know, 5 years without coke, all of those things are pretty hard anyway. You know, trying to make ends meet in life, especially in the music world, you know, it's up and down, you take every gig you got, you're travelling, you're tired. It's hard anyway, but it's certainly a lot easier. But it's worth just keeping a check. If you're somebody watching this who isn't in recovery, or isn't finding themselves, you know, staggering around at the end of the night, or drinking loads and loads and loads, or taking coke and still just going to bed and functioning, it's always worth just to check in with yourself as a person. Just go, hang on a minute, just take 5 minutes just to sit down and go, right, am I drinking too much? Am I doing this? And this isn't me telling you, I'm just telling you something that you might go, oh, well, hang on a minute, I found all that very hard today, and that's because I had a hangover. You know, and if you're someone who actually, I don't drink a lot, but I seem to drink at the wrong times, or I do this, you know, I think it's good for everyone, just because I was talking to someone about how normalised alcohol is. It's like, so many people suffer with alcoholism, you know, people dying from alcoholism, mental health issues from alcoholism, yet you can watch, there's adverts for it on TV. Do you know what I mean? They go on about smoking kills, but so does alcohol. They encourage you to buy a bottle of wine for your mum on Mother's Day. It's Father's Day coming up. Buy your dad a bottle of whiskey. You know, it's like, and that's not me. I'm not moaning at the whole scene. I'm just saying it's good to just recognise it a bit, you know. Anyway, look, folks, I'm going to go because we're leaving. We're going down to Somerset. But I'll do another video when I get down to Somerset because I want to. There's a couple of questions that I want to answer anyway. So you may have seen that I'm uploading these videos to YouTube as well, because some people said, "Oh, I'll forget to go on Instagram," but I'm always on YouTube. So you can follow On the Road in Recovery on YouTube, and it's in the link of the bio of this account. Okay. Enjoy your day. Speak to you soon. All right. Bye bye.